Hello, my yarny friends. Welcome back to Knits by Scent. Thank you for joining me today. As you can see in front of you, I have my loom blanket. I've had a few people ask me how to make the blanket in comment sections of my videos. So I'm actually at the corner of my blanket. So I thought this would be a good time to do the video to show you. I'm not going to start right here at this point. I'm going to actually start from the beginning. But when I get to the corner, I'm also going to, I'm going to show you how I do it probably on this project here. Okay, so let me just gently move this out the way. Okay. All right. So what you need to know about doing the blanket or making the blanket is that it's made with 2 stitches. Sorry, actually I'm going to bring it back. Oh goodness. All right. The 2 stitches you need to know how to do are knits and purls. And I will demonstrate how to do a knit and purl stitch for those who may not know, who may be brand spanking new to loom knitting. And you know, maybe you crochet, maybe you knit, maybe you're just thinking about trying to start one of the above. And loom knitting, you can make so many things with just 2 simple stitches, knits and purls. Okay, the knit and purl combination makes a garter stitch. What you're looking at here, this is the garter stitch. Okay, it's how I'm making it because I'm using E-wrap, and I'm going to explain the difference between an E-wrap and a U-wrap knit stitch. And it's on a 5/8 inch loom, which means that there's 5/8 of an inch between the center peg to center peg. So it gives it a nice flowy feel to it. I don't like my blankets being stiff. That reminds me of a rug. Okay. All right. Now I will put this over here. Okay. And for demonstration, I'm going to use, this is also a Cindy Wood loom. This is a 1/2 inch. So that means there's a 1/2 inch between this center peg and this center peg, or all of them, you know. And I'm only going to go up to where this green marker is. I don't remember why I had this marker here and I just never took it off. So I'm going to use it for today. Now, with this loom, Cindy Wood, and I'm not trying to promote her, but I do like her looms. They're all handmade. She uses a different color peg, starting peg, for every single one of her looms. And I have a few, and I've gifted some to my younger daughter. So this is a round loom, and this is for a very thin yarn, like a 1, 2, maybe even a 3. I would not recommend these little sock yarns like this to do this blanket because it'll get all bulky while you're making your corners and things like that. So you certainly can use a round loom. I would just use a bigger one, okay? So for example, like these hat looms, even the smaller one from this set, I forget what brand this is. This one, oops, sorry. This one is a KB loom. You can use the smaller KB loom as long as it has an amount of pegs that you need for your blanket. You don't have to do 10 pegs. You can do 20 pegs. You can do 60 pegs if you want to. It really honestly doesn't matter. You can use, so I actually brought up a sock loom. Gosh, I've had this thing for so long. I don't even remember where I got this from. I mean, I got it from, actually, I think I got it off Amazon, now that I think about it. But I know like KB Loom, for example, makes a sock loom. A lot of folks do. You can use an all-in-one loom. Like this one. Okay. But you only need one side. Okay. So if you wanted to do, you know, a double-sided, a 2-sided loom, and say, I'm just going to toss out a number. I think this one has 30 pegs. But if you want to use a bigger loom that had like 60 pegs, you're just making a much wider panel to start with. And actually, you won't have to do so many rounds depending on how big you want to make your blanket, okay? But the point is to make sure you have enough pegs to meet your needs with a little bit of space. If you're using a loom like this versus like a towel loom, as I think that's what these are called, it's probably a good idea to maybe mark your first and your last peg. Because if you get off into dreamland, you know, while you're watching Netflix or whatever, listening to books or whatever that you're doing, you don't want to accidentally keep going, and then you'll have like a wonkadoodle blanket, so you have to take it out and start over. And one thing that is not so fun when you're illuminating is if you make a mistake and you have to take your work out. It's just not fun. So I would recommend stitch markers to mark your first and last peg. Okay. All right. I'm sorry, I kind of went off on a little detour with that. I didn't mean to do that, but that's okay. All right, so I'm just going to use this yarn here. This is a Loops and Thread leftover yarn that I had from a project. In fact, I think it was a blanket. A lot of looms come with these starter pegs. This one is just a thumbtack that they put in. But you do not have to put your tail, you know, like wrap that around that peg if you don't want to. I do. All right, so I'm going to demonstrate how to do the two different types of knit stitches that you can do with when making this blanket. There are 3 knit stitches. One is a flat stitch, and it literally is going across the peg. Well, actually, let me just do this real quick. I'm going to take this out. So when you do a flat stitch, you're holding it flat over, and this makes it a little tight. So I would not recommend that stitch, okay? The E-wrap stitch, which gives it more of a the loosest knit stitch, okay? Hope I said that right. So I usually do E-wrap. Oh, word, I hope you don't hear my stomach. I promise I ate breakfast. So to do an E-wrap, you're just making wraps around each peg. I also cast on this way. When I get to my last peg and my first peg are turning pegs. So I come to the front, loop around to the back, and bring it forward. And then you're going to knit off the bottom over the top. Oh, did that a little tight. Each peg. And including this one. Get over. Okay. All right. And then you're going to purl back. So to purl, you're going to come from the top of the loom, the top of the peg, scoop that loop up, bring your working yarn underneath, and I do hold it, and then you're going to come down up under and scoop it up. So now you have this loop here. So now you want to take the old loop off. That's the old one right there. Lift that up and bring the new loop in its place. Okay. From the top, scoop up that working yarn. Get hold of the new loop. Help the old one off. Place that on. Now be careful when you are taking this off, this loop here off the peg, that you don't pull your working yarn too tight. Because if you pull it out of your fingers, you just lost your loop. So it's just make sure you don't lose your twist there. Put it back on and try it again. I did that on purpose, but I just want to show you that I've done that before, and it's like, oh no. It's like, everything stop. Let me catch my stitch. Okay, so then you bring it up and off. Now, if your stitch is a little tight, you can grab the new loop with your left or your non-dominant hand. So I'm right-handed. This is exactly the same if you're left, just in the opposite direction. And you can use your hook to help get that stitch off the peg, okay? And then help it get on. All right, so you're going to purl all the way back to the beginning. Oops, sorry, I bumped my camera. My little selfie stand there. My setup is a little unorthodox, so I hope it's not too wobbly. Okay, and then when we get back to the first peg, we're not going to purl that. Now, some people do. I do not, okay? Neither is right or wrong. It's your preference. I prefer not to purl my beginning and end pegs. Okay, so now to do a U-wrap. So the U-wrap, you will need to bring the yarn to the front of the first peg, the starting peg, and come back around so that you can bring the yarn in the front like this. But you're not going to go all the way around like I did, making those little E's, if you will, okay? With the E-wrap, you saw how in the previous row I had E-wrapped all of my pegs. And I can go back and knit them off. With the U-wrap, you have to do it in real time. That's I don't know, it's kind of like a nursing term, right? You have to do something in real time. So you cannot go back, you can't U-wrap and go back. You have to U-wrap and knit it off in real time, okay? Usually, you see, I hold my yarn kind of between my index finger, my middle finger, and my ring finger and pinky finger, or just kind of using it as a loose tension thing. So this is not my, this is where the tension is. The tension control is, my fingers aren't really tight. They're like next to each other, but it's loose enough where the yarn can slide through nicely. And so you just go ahead and knit off, and then I just can kind of hover over the loop like so. Now, I suppose you could do a row of E-wrap and a row of U-wrap, because you're still going to get garter stitch no matter what. It's just your preference of what type of knit stitch you want to make. And again, you're going to go around the front just like that and bring your yarn, around to the back, to the front to get ready to do the purls. You're going to knit this one off, okay? And then you're going to purl back no matter what. All right, and that is row number 2. Go back to the next to the last, or to the first peg. That's your last purl. You're going to go ahead and knit that one off. That was from the when you started row 2. And then you start all over. And like I said, I usually prefer to do the, sorry, I'm so sorry. When I'm working like 2 different stitches, it's like, which direction do I go? If you're doing the knit, the E-wrap, you do need to bring the yarn from behind the first peg and around the front, and then behind the second peg to make a full loop. I usually have a, what do they call those? I'm not even sure. There's a term for it. Basically, I took a pen apart, like a dead old pen apart, and I made like a guide so that I don't have to do this with my hand. I mean, you're still using your hands, right? So you E-wrap, you see? I can E-wrap them all, come to the front, swing around back, and you're going to knit off. I'm holding that thing on there for dear life. Okay. Now you can like knit off a peg and purl that same peg at the same time as you're working back to your first peg. And you can go ahead and knit that off. I just tend to wait sometimes. There's no specific reason why I do that. It just happens. All right, and then we're gonna purl back. You see how I use my hook to get that off? It's so weird because maybe because I'm not using my little guide thing. I'm going to show you with my other blanket. When I do the E-wraps, I think I do them kind of tighter than the U-wrap. That's just weird. But anyway, I guess it makes sense because you're E-wrapping it all the way around. Okay. Alrighty. And now we're back to the first peg. Okay. So, I'll just set that there for a second. Let's talk about supplies. Obviously, you need yarn and your loom of choice. Just like I said, make sure that your yarn and your loom is matching. So this yarn is, I believe it's a number 5. And this is a 1/2 inch. So this is a little bit smaller gauge. So this would be good for a number 4 yarn. This one, which is a 3/8 inch, and I was trying to compare it to see, oh, good Lord, I'm so sorry. Trying to see if, yeah, I think this is also a 1/2 inch. I could find a ruler and try to measure it, but that's okay. You could definitely use a number 3 or number 4 yarn with this size peg. And this, even though it's spaced out, with it being 3/8, this is good for like a 1 or a 2. I don't think you're going to find pegs smaller than this. I very well could be wrong about that. Okay, so just get your yarn, your loom. You obviously need your hooks. This one is a KB ergonomic hook, which you can get from Joann's. That's where I got mine. You can also get it off of KB, which is a knitting board. And I got this from Etsy. I will find the link and include it because they make some really pretty ergonomic hooks. It's actually made out of wood. It's not heavy. Got my queen yarn, my yarn queen cup. You may need stitch markers to mark your first and last peg. You can use whatever kind of stitch markers you want. I believe I ordered these off of Etsy many moons ago. But if you just look up stitch markers in Etsy, you will, I'm sure you will find some like really pretty stitch markers if you're into that. And these I'm sure I got from Etsy too. You'll need a darning needle, a sewing needle, pair of scissors. So I had dropped my little pen. Oh, here it is. Okay. This is just the old Holiday Inn pen. I don't know if it was done, like no more ink or not, but it was sacrificed nonetheless. And I like using these. And normally I would put them on the yarn before you get started because obviously to do it afterwards, it doesn't work. So basically the yarn would be inside the tube. And I usually use a needle, like I thread the needle with the yarn and I put it in there. And then I'll use either, I have a wooden skewer rather, that's clean. I've never used it for food or anything, or a very thin crochet hook to push it down to get the yarn through, okay? But when it's on the yarn, I'm able to do my E-wraps. Just goes a little bit faster. Okay, I'm going to put my supplies back in here because the next thing I'm going to talk about is the structure, and I'm going to put that on paper, and hopefully the visual will help you understand how this works. Okie dokie. Yeah, I'm that girl that needs to use colorful pens. All right, so again, depending on how you want to structure your blanket, if you want to do a square or a rectangle. Again, for a square, if you're doing 20 pegs, you want to do 20 rows of garter stitch. So basically, you're going to do 40 rows of some kind of knitting, right? Because 1 row of knit and 1 row of purl equals 1 row of garter, okay? So when you make that decision, I usually do rectangle, like I said. If you're doing square, number of garter stitches would equal the number of pegs you're using to get a square. Rectangle, you can make it as long as you want. All right, so I usually do a rectangle. So you're going to start okay, so because I'm right-handed, I go from left to right. And you know what? It doesn't matter if you go from, I go from left to right. It doesn't matter if you go right to left. For me, just naturally, it just helps me to go this way. So this is panel number 1, and you're going down till you get to your corner. Now, with the corner, I'm going to try to show you here on the blanket that I have been working on, and I hope that you can see it. Try to get it in view. Oops, I think I got it over too far. Okay, there we go. So this right here is my first panel. Right here. Just knocked off looms off my table. I can't set my camera up like for me to sit at my table, so but anyway. So this right here is the first panel. There are no seams in the beginning, obviously, because we haven't done anything yet. So yeah, and I have it backwards. My bad. I was just looking at the seams. I'm like, wait, that's not quite right. There we go. Okay. This is still my first panel. All right. So right here, and then right here is a decrease, and you're going to do an increase, and you have to do another decrease and another increase, and then you will start your second panel, and on your second panel, you'll start the connection. So let me show you on paper, because unfortunately, I haven't figured out a good setup to show where you guys can see everything. Okay. All right, so we have our first panel. You make it, whether it's square or rectangle. So you're going to start your decreases, and you're going to make a corner. So this is the decrease. And then you're going to make an increase. So the D means decrease, the I means increase. Then this is the only time that you have to do a back-to-back decrease and increase. And it's so that you can get around this corner and start working your way back up with your second panel. Okay, so you're going to make another decrease. And I know my corners aren't matching up in my little diagram here. So this is a decrease. Decrease. That's a down arrow. And then you're going to make, a increase. I'm going to show you how to do that. No worries. Okay. So now you're going to start panel number 2. Panel number 2 is going to go all the way back up till you reach this stitch right here. Actually, the other stitch markers you should get are the little fasteners, or some people use yarn. One of these, I just thought about it as I'm telling you about this, is because sometimes it might be hard for people to see where the first corner stitches are, to know where my last stitch is and where the next stitch begins when I start my side here. So it's good to have a couple of these as well. Okay, so this is panel number 2, and panel number 2 is going to go up. And you're going to go to the end with, obviously you can't go any further than that as far as connecting. And when you're starting panel number 2, you're going to start connecting the sides here. That's where that seam is coming in. I like the seam. I know there's a way to do it without the seam, but I honestly don't know how to do it because I've never done it that way. I don't remember whose video I was watching when I learned how to do this, and they did theirs with the seam. And I just like it. I like it because it gives a little character to the blanket. All right, so then after you get to the end, you're going to do another decrease and another increase. And then you're going to start a short row. This is going to be a long row if you're doing a rectangle. And this is going to be a short row to the end here, which is your first stitch if you're right-handed. Flip it around if you're left-handed. So this would be number 3. Then you're going to do another decrease and another increase. Okay. And then you're going to do panel number 4. Panel 4 is going to go all the way down. Oh, it's running out of ink. Panel 4 is going to go all the way down here. Don't stop here. You're going to go all the way down here. Okay, so this is a long panel. If you're doing a square, it's going to be the exact same thing. If you're doing a square, you're still going to do your decrease, increase, decrease, increase, side panel, decrease, increase, side panel, or top panel, decrease, increase, side panel, down to the end. Now, if you decided to do, say, a 60 pegs, right, which would make it wider, and you do all of this, your blanket could actually be done with just doing this corner here, decrease, increase, a side panel, decrease, increase corner, a top panel, decrease, increase panel, and a side panel to the end. Your blanket could actually be done. That is the beauty of this blanket. You can make it as wide or as narrow as you want it. And if you decide, nope, let me just make it a king size and keep going, you could do that too. Now, I would strongly recommend, and it is recommended even in the pattern from my understanding. I've never seen it in writing. You want to end your blanket with the top panel, you know, like if you were holding it up, it would be this way. So you would want to end your blanket down here, not here on the side or at the top. You want it down at the bottom of your blanket, okay? I will show you how to bind off the blanket on my little sample. So, but this would be panel number 4, and panel number 4 is going down. If you decide to continue, then you would just continue with the decrease, increase. Actually, it's this decrease, increase, right? Let me just show you. I'm sorry, because I don't want you to get confused. So decrease, increase, and you would do another panel, another short panel that's getting longer. See, this was a short panel here. Now this short panel just got longer to this point right here. This would be number 5. That's supposed to be 5. 5. And it's going to go that way. Again, do another decrease. So if you didn't stop here, you really should keep going and do one more full, I'm going to say circle, even though it's not a circle, but you know what I mean, right? Decrease, increase, and you're going to make another side panel, I call a long panel, on the rectangle blanket, and this will be number 6. And you have to do another decrease, another increase. Don't short your decrease like I just did on paper. That would be jacked up. Another increase. And just trying to find a different color. Here we go. And a top panel, which is, again, is getting longer. So this is number 7. And then once you finish this stretch here, well, I haven't had these pins that long, and they're just, I guess I didn't use them fast enough because they seem like they're trying to dry out on me. Do another decrease, increase, and then another very long panel. And this would be number 8. And again, you could finish right here. This could be your end. You just keep going until you have made it big enough, as big as you want it. But just remember that you want to end at the bottom of your blanket, not at the top or at the side. Okay? All right, so what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to just make this a little bit bigger. Actually, I can just show you now. So again, I wish I had put my guide on, but I didn't. Okay. I think maybe this time I'll just go ahead and do a unit. So in the beginning, especially working with this loom, it's a little fuddly at first, and it's just because there's nothing to really stabilize it. I usually work on it in my lap, not on a table, trying to work up underneath the camera. But this blanket is so, it is my go-to blanket. I do crochet quite a few blankets as well, but I do like this blanket. I think it's probably my favorite. I tried to do this with Tunisian crochet. I found somebody that kind of did a really good job explaining it. There was only like 2 people that I could find on YouTube that explained it, and it just would not come out right. I just kept having gaping holes. I don't know if my count just kept getting lost because of how you have to do the increase and stuff. I don't know, but I was like, okay, well, I guess it's just not my time to know how to do this blanket. If you do put your yarn on this little end peg here, if I didn't get it totally tightened up, you can remove it after a couple of rows. Can't really see it too much, but there the garter stitches are getting started. And again, I just come back around. So I did U wrap the previous row, and now I'm doing an E wrap. And I'm still getting a garter stitch out of it anyway. So again, it doesn't matter which way you go as far as the knit stitch. You can do both like I just did. Okay. So I think you got the gist of the body of the blanket, which is just back and forth knits and purls. Knits and purls, knits and purls. Okay. All right, I'm going to show you how to do the corner now. When you're working your blanket, your top side, the front side of the blanket is going to be down. Okay? So you won't be able to see your pretty design while you're working on it until it gets bigger. Okay, so when you get the blanket, like let's just pretend this is not here. And I am ready to make my corner. So I'm sorry, I'm going to pretend like this other panel is not here and I'm ready to make my corner. So I have all of this yarn. I'm back at, you want to make sure that you're starting your corner at the first peg. Okay. All right. So here's, I do have my little, I guess they call it a tension guide. My confiscated pin shell. Now, in real life, I have finished a short row. I think it's a short, yeah, I finished a short row. So I'm on the top side. Well, let's see. I'm on a short row. I just finished a short row. Okay. So to do the decrease of my pegs, you're going to go all the way to the last peg. So because I'm E-wrapping, I'm just going to go ahead and E-wrap all the way to my last peg. Or if you do the U-wrap, just U-wrap to the last peg. I'm going to go ahead and do my turn on my last peg, but I'm not going to knit it off. I'm going to leave that there, okay? And then I knit back. Actually, I just thought about something. I am going to use my little sample because I'm doing 20 pegs and this could take a minute. And I want to show you, but you don't need to watch me do this like 20 times. I had to do that anyway, so it's not wasted time. Okay. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put my last stitch back on the peg. Okay, so my panel is as long as I want it. I'm ready to do my corner. So again, you're gonna go here to your turning, your last peg. Just do the turn, do not knit off, leave it there, work your way back. Every time I pause my video, I end up stopping it somehow, and it could just be my phone. So I apologize that you're going to watch. I'm just going to record this whole thing because I don't want to have to start all over with recording this video. You can certainly like skip through it. I know people are like, oh, that might hurt your ratings. I don't care. It's okay. So again, you can E-wrap, U-wrap, and then you're gonna go to the last peg. This now becomes your turning peg. Do the turn, leave the loop on there, and work your way back. So if you just do with 10 stitches, it works still pretty fast because you're only working 10 stitches at a time. So it just takes, I think, a little longer to get to the size blanket you want, unless you're using some really thick yarn and maybe like those zippy looms where the pegs are ginormous. But you have to have, like, I don't know, a number 7 yarn or something to work with it. I'm going to do, for kicks and giggles, because why not? I'm going to do my U-wrap stitch here. But unless you're using, like, the zippy loom, which you could do, you know, still 10 if you have enough of them, it's just going to take a long time to get to the end of your project, which is probably why I've never done 10 pegs ever. And I usually use number 5 yarn because I have a lot, 5 or 6 bulky yarn when I'm making the blankets. Sorry, that is catch. Oh, don't tip over. It's catching my my blanket. I should probably move that. All right. Right? That. I have my yarn in a yarn bowl on the floor. So again, you're going to knit to the next peg next to the one with the doubles. I didn't count the pegs. And you're just gonna loop around, keep that on. So we're decreasing. So we're just getting less and less pegs to have to work. And when I start my increase, I'm gonna go a little slow because I think that's where it can get a little confusing. I should have did and if I need to do this over, I can also just go ahead and do it in parts as well. I'm okay with that. But at least right here, we're getting like the fundamentals. And I still may have to do a second part because I need to show you how I connect the panels. And I can show you on my bigger blanket, but I have to work my decrease and increases first. So there may have to be a part 2 to this, which is fine. All right. Maybe. Let's see. I might be able to work with a few tiny little rows I have here. That might be kind of fun. Let's see. We'll see what happens. Okay. Okay, we're almost there. Oh. Okay. Now, so we have one, our peg, our second peg. Here's the third peg. Now that's gonna be a turning peg. I knit that off. I'm gonna go ahead and purl that. Knit the first peg. Okay. All right, so because this is gonna have to be a turning peg now, I come around the front, like I basically do a figure 8 and wrap around. Let me try to do it a little better. So I just purled off the second peg. I have to bring the yarn to the front over this loop because we're not purling. Okay, bring it over and you're going to do a figure 8. So go behind the first peg, back in front of the second peg, leave that stitch on, leave that loop on there, because now it just became a turning peg. So I'm going to go ahead and knit off. Okay, so now I want to make sure when I'm increasing, I knit off three loops. Okay, so right now we have 2 loops on here. So that means we have to do another figure 8 around peg 1, around peg 2. Okay, now I have 3 loops, 2, 3. I'm going to knit this off. Okay, so now because I'm going to start, I think I'm going to just go ahead and do a U-wrap. I'll do it both ways. So now I need to start increasing. And because I want to knit off 3 loops, that helps give it that rise in the seam, I'm going to start going off to the next stitch and working back. It's going to make sense in a second. At least I hope it does. So I'm going to come around. I'm going to E-wrap my first one. For the E-wrappers, I will do a U-stitch. E-wrap the first one. Okay, so I got 1, 2, 3, now 4. And I'm going to turn on the third stitch. And I think I said that wrong, so I apologize. You're going to kind of go, you're going to bring the yarn in front of the first peg so that you can E-wrap the second peg. And then you're going to turn on the third peg. Okay. Now my third peg will have the 3 loops I need to knit off on the next go around. My first peg, or my second peg, sorry, has 3 loops on it. And you may have to do them one at a time, because this one's on here kind of tight. I didn't mean to do it that tight. 2 and 3, all 3 up and over. And then I come back, I'm going to go ahead and knit that off my first peg. And then I purl my second peg, because I'm going back to the beginning. Okay? So now, I'm going to try this doing it the U-wrap. So U-wrap, you have to bring your yarn in the front. U-wrap the second peg. U-wrap the third peg. And because you're U-wrapping, you got to do it in real time. And this is probably one reason why I don't do this, I think, because I will forget to go back and wrap peg number 4. so I can get my 3 loops. Okay, I'm going to show that again. All right. This is for the U-wrap. Bring the yarn in front. U-wrap peg 1. U-wrap peg 2. U-wrap peg 3. Good Lord. This is peg 4. You guys are going to kill me. I'm sorry. This is peg 4, so you wrap 2, you wrap 3, you wrap 4. You're going to knit off all your chains, your 3 loops that were there already. And then you're going to turn on peg 5. Purl back. I'm going to try that again on the next one, and hopefully I can count. I feel like a redo is going to happen with this video. I'm so sorry, y'all. And as you can see, my fabric is starting to kind of like move. It's not really like actually moving, but you can see because the yarn is now increasing, it's making the corner. It's starting to turn the corner. All right, here we go. This is for the U-wrap. In the front, peg 1, U-wrap 2, U-wrap 3, U-wrap 4, U-wrap 5, and you're going to knit off all 3 of these loops that were on here. You can do them all if you can get them all at one time, great. If you need to do it one at a time, that's fine. And then you're going to turn on peg 6. Leave that loop on there because you need it for the next go around. Purl back to the beginning. Okay. I'm still working doing the U-wrap. So U-wrap 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, knit off your stitches. Oh. U-wrap 7 as a turning peg, leave that on there and purl back. I must have marked off 10 pegs. Maybe I was going to do 10 pegs at one time. And I was like, yeah, no. I don't know. And don't forget to knit off your first peg. Okay, one more time with the, well, I'm gonna finish out this row with the U-wrap, and then because I have to do the increase and decrease again anyway, so U-wrap, three, 4, 5, sorry, my yarns got tangled up here when I moved my blanket back. Hold on a second. There we go. Okay, so where are we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. U-wrap. U-wrap 7. Knit off your all 3 of those stitches. Oof. Turn on 8. Leave that stitch on there. I will tell you that I have missed doing that extra wrap before, and I'm sorry, I'm not going back to fix that one stitch. It kind of gets lost, so you don't, it's okay. As long as you, if you caught it, just remember like on the next stitches, like to put it in. And you purl back. Always purling back, except for the first. See, you're starting to get your corner. Okay. Oops. Not doing that one yet. I started to E-wrap. We're not doing that. So again, U-wrap 2, 3, 4, all the way up to, I think we're 9 now. 8, where are we? Up to the next peg with 3 stitches. Yeah, I think we're on 8. So U-wrap, you're going to knit off all 3 of those. U-wrap 9, turn. I almost have a little knot there. Oh, what's happening? Oh, there's a little knot in my yarn. Okay. I didn't realize that. Come on. There we go. Oh, see? I almost lost my stitch. Got it. Okay. Oh, or do I? I might not. I don't have it. Hold on. There. All right. Well, that's annoying. Okay, I'm gonna have to deal with it. There's like this little knot in my yarn that I didn't notice before. So it's just, yeah, making it harder to do the purl with the working yarn being able to pull through a little bit. It's okay. All right. All right, so I hope you can start to see your corner there. And so this is, it's kind of hard to see it now that I'm working with it, but this is like kind of bumpy, and plus it's the first one. The first corner. All right, so we're gonna knit all the way up to, with a U-wrap, I'm doing the U-wrap right now, up to number 9. And U-wrap 10, leave that there. We're gonna come back to 10. So each peg gets a turn. Okay, gets the opportunity to be knitted off with 3 loops on it, with the exception of the starting peg. Starting peg does not have that opportunity, but it has other opportunities that the rest of the pegs don't. Like it gets to be a figure 8. How about that? I'm just trying to not have empty space, y'all. Sorry. I'm being silly. Okay. So knit that off. Okay. Now we're going to go down to number 10. I'm sorry. Habit. I see, you can tell I do E-wraps all the time because that's exactly where my brain went. So we're going to go U-wrap all the way down because I'm doing U-wrap on this corner. And then I'll do E-wraps on the next one. Okay. Now, you just go ahead and do your U-wrap and you knit off. and then you purl your way back. So this, so this would be the first corner. I'm going to show you that on my little diagram. Okay, so that's the first half of your very first corner. So right here, so we did our panel, we just did a decrease and we just did an increase. Now we have to do another decrease again so that we can come around to get up to the second panel. All right, so just like you did before, I'm gonna E-wrap. I wish I had my little guide thing on here. So I'm gonna E-wrap all my pegs. I'm gonna go down to peg number 10 and I'm gonna do the turning. I'm gonna leave that on there. Okay, don't knit it off. And I'm gonna start working my way back. So if you decided to just make really big panels, so, you know, if you did like, I don't know, more than 20, it's just the exact same concept. I actually thought about, and I still might do it, I thought about doing, using one of my KB, like all-in-one, you know, one of those big looms where it's like 60 pegs. I think there's one that has 60 pegs on each side. And making a blanket that way, and then just doing maybe one full, we'll see how big it turns out, one full round of it. So that means in addition to the center panel, doing the 2 side panels and the 2 bottom panels, and see how big that would come out using 60 pegs. So I have, my nephew asked me to make him a blanket. He wanted it for his birthday this year, but I knew it wasn't going to happen. And I'm still thinking about, like, what can I make him? You know, he wants it in the giant football colors team. So it's kind of like a royal blue and red color. And that might be fun to do. And he'll get his one of a kind. So right now I'm still doing my decreases on the second part of this first corner. Knits and purls. Oh, sorry, I'm just hot. I gotta take my jacket off. Because I want to also show you how to do the connection. Maybe while I'm doing this part, you guys, I should have said this earlier, I didn't think about it. Maybe you, if you haven't started yet, come on. If you haven't started yet, maybe you can start making your panel, your square or your rectangle. Up to you, of course. All right, sorry, turn that. This is right here. Actually, the decrease is kind of fun because you're getting less and less and less pegs that you have to work. But then you have to increase. Oh, serious. So I don't know what shape blanket this is, because I definitely did not do 10 rows of garter stitch. I don't even know what this is going to look like. I probably should have, but I didn't. This is just demonstration. But I wouldn't I mean, I don't know. I don't know how it's going to look odd. I think it would look odd if you don't do at least a square shape. Do-do-do. So I just wanted to show you something. You see how you can see these sides here? Let me stretch it out a little bit. This is where we're going to be connecting along the side when we're done with our second set of increases. And sometimes, what do I do with that stitch marker? Give me 2 seconds. So, like I was saying, like sometimes it's hard to figure out like where would you even put your first connecting point. It would be like right here. So you can put a stitch marker there when you get to that point of making your panel of your corners. And also this corner right there. That's going to be the end of that little short row, which should be a long row, but for me it's a short row because, well, I only did a few rows. Let's return. Oh, come on, get on there. Do. Oh. Okay. So just let me know. I mean, I know this video is not the best, and I do apologize. And I was trying to figure out, because I practiced the video a little bit last night, just trying to figure out the setup of where I can have my camera and, come on Cynthia, where my camera can be set up and I can be able to sit, because I was actually standing and it was a little uncomfortable. It was not this long. So right now I'm sitting on a not really a bar stool. I guess it's considered a bar stool, but we have it at our counter. And I'm using pins under me to hold my work. So that's why it's a little bit wobbly. All right, so I had some connection here. So never mind the strings you see there. So because we're to our second peg, so you have to bring, and we have to do a figure 8 on this one, just like we did with the other. So you bring it around the front, come around the back. Now that is the turning peg. Oh, don't cut the wrong string. That would have been embarrassing. I don't need those hanging off there. Anyway, okay, so I'm going to do that again. So do the figure 8. That's now the turning peg. You're going to work off, knit off the first peg, and do again another figure 8, because remember, we still want our 3 loops to have to be worked over. So we'll go ahead and knit the first peg. Good grief. All right. Now you can't work you can't advance with the E-wrap when you're doing your increases either. Okay. Because just like I said, you want to knit off 3 loops off of each peg, just like we did with the other side when we were doing the U-knit. It's the same thing with the E-wrap. So you're going to do, so now you have to bring the yarn to the back of the first peg, come around, do your E-wrap, and then you're going to turn on peg 3. So peg 3 will get its 3 loops. Peg 2, ooh, that's tight. Peg 2, we can loop, knit off the 3 loops there. Purl, peg 2, knit off peg 1. Okay. So E-wrap 1, E-wrap 2, E-wrap 3, turn peg 4, knit off peg 3's 3 loops, pegs 1 and 2, purl back, pegs 3 and 2, and we're going to keep doing our increases. 3, E-wrap 4, turn on 5. Knit off the 3 off of peg 4, purl back. Don't forget to knit your other ones off. Like I said, you can knit and purl that one peg at this, before advancing. You can do that like I'm doing right now. Whatever works for you. Some people will mark their pegs with like marker or nail polish also, so they know where their first and last pegs are. You can certainly do that if you wish. Pulling back. And as we continue to do the increase, you will start to see that full corner develop. But you truly only need to know knits and purls for this pattern. Don't let the words decrease and increase scare you. The first time I heard it, I was like, you got to do what? Like, how does that work? It's just basically using a turning peg or making turning pegs, basically. So it can go pretty fast. I'm also doing 10 pegs. Turn. We're knitting off peg 7. We're getting there. I have several different looms, like I said. Cindy Wood looms, if you have never purchased their looms before, they are nice. Like I said, they're handmade, and you get to choose like what color pegs you want. You can do like all white if you wish. I don't know what they do as far as like if you want all white, if they make that starting peg black. I think they do, just so you know where your starting peg is. One year they had a Christmas loom, and it's 75 pegs, and it's a 5/8 inch peg, and I actually have it on my wall. I'll show you. And my husband got me that for Christmas, and it's marked so that it's marked where it's like you can do a knit 2 purl 1 or a purl 2 and knit 1 type of pattern, which is pretty cool. All sorts of things you can do with that. It's a round loom, so, but it's kind of big. Like I said, it's 75 pegs. So you could do like a throw with that, a blanket, or you can even do the body of a poncho, for example, maybe for a kid. In the round, let's slow down a little bit before I lose my stitches. But yeah, I had one that was an Afghan loom. I think it had 120 pegs, and it's pretty darn big, let me tell you. But as I got it, I was like, I really don't like this thing. It's not that I don't like it. The craftsmanship is wonderful. It's just that I found that I really didn't need it. But the cool thing is, you could do multiple projects on that thing at the same time. So like if you wanted to make, 4 different 10-stitch blankets, or, however many stitches blankets, you could actually do them all on that same loom at the same time. But it's a double knit loom, so it was an oval shape. I think it had like 120 pegs on it. It was really big. And my younger daughter, who does loom knitting, she likes to use a lot of the baby blanket, which is not my favorite yarn. I just don't care for it. So I was like, here you go. I'll probably never use it. Hopefully you will. But if you don't, please tell me. I'll come get it, because it's not, the looms are not cheap. Okay, I'm gonna tell you that now. They're a little bit pricey. If you could try to find them on sale, and I will put a link in the description. If you can find it on sale, when she has a sale, that's great. I would recommend that. I think she even might make longer of these towel looms. I can't swear to that. I'd have to look again. Okay. Now we're increasing our 10th peg. Oops, that's still a turning peg. It's always a turning peg. So I knit that off, and what I usually do is go ahead and put my first stitch that I'm going to, the end here, which is the inner part of the panel, the inside panel. Sorry. So we did this. So my first stitch, which is this one here, that's the inside panel, I call it. I mean, they both eventually will become the inside panel, but like this side here, because the starting peg point is here. So right here, I put this loop, sorry, onto the peg. That's how I connect them. Take that out the way. Just kind of put that over there. Just leave that there until the next go around. Smooth that over here. I'm going to finish knitting off and purling back. Push it down a little bit. In the beginning, when you're first working on your blanket, it's a nice little travel size project, you know, you can take with you, put it in your little project bag, and or your own personal, you know, purse, or well, not a little purse, but like your tote bag or your backpack. Okay, so here we have the panel 1. This is part of panel, this stitch here is part of panel 1, is now connected to the 10th peg. Okay, so I'm going to continue with the E-wrap. So I'm going to go ahead and E-wrap all of my pegs. Give it some more yarn there. E-wrap all my pegs, and including doing my turn on the 10th peg. So this stitch here, which was part of this was the turning stitch from the last row when I finished my increase. And you're going to take also the loop from the first panel and knit it over. Okay, I usually just go right ahead and put the second loop on. I know I'm going to have to do this again, so I'm not sure that you can see this as well, and I do apologize. I didn't think this part through, I will be honest. But as you start to work it, you'll start to see the holes in between the garter stitches. Okay, that's where you're going to connect, put that onto that peg. And then go ahead and do your knits and purls if you haven't knitted off. And it's the same thing with, you know, the U-wrap, the U-knits stitch. Remember, you just have to do it in real time. It's really the only difference. And your purls. I feel like I'm getting slower. Okay. All right, and then we're gonna do, so now you can see this is the corner. This is what it looks like on the other side. This is kind of hanging out there because it's not attached yet, but it will be a triangle or a square shape. This is, you know, obviously still on the loom, and then once this side is done, it won't be like flaring out. So you don't see the seam is going to be here. Can't see it yet. We're working on it. And so do your U-wrap. Go ahead and knit that off. And you would do that all the way up the row. I'm going to go ahead and sometimes like even I still have to like kind of pull a little bit to see where my next little opening is. If you think this is your opening and you go to put it on like right here and you see like, oh, that's my working yarn is coming out of there. That is the previous hole. So then you want to find the next one. And that's the other thing about like if you don't do it as tight as I did it, which I didn't mean to do it that way. This probably would have been better on my bigger, my 5/8 loom. It makes it more loose and it makes it easier to see where you can connect the garment together, the panels together. All right. And knit that off. The other thing, if you know how many rows you did, that would also help to make sure that you do the right number of connections. Otherwise, your blanket could come out lopsided. So just keep track of your garter rows. You can always just count them also. So that's how the panel's coming out. And you can tell this is the beginning because that's that. And then you're going to go across the top after you do your next corner. So like I said, this corner right here, this double decrease, increase, that is the only time you do it back to back. That's it, that one. And then from moving forward, every corner is just one row, I shouldn't say one row, one section of decrease and one section of increase. And then you start moving on with connecting the border of the previous panel to your work. So right now we're still connecting panel 1. I hope I explained that correctly. Oh gosh, I hope that wasn't off camera. I'm sorry. All right, so this lit up. Oh, goodness gracious. All right, and that's the corner. Take that out. So I'm going to do something a little unorthodox, not at this very moment. I'm just trying to finish up this tiny little row here, this little section, so I can show you how to do the bind off. You don't want the bind off to be too tight either, because it can make things a little strange. All right. So if I'm not sure, like how many rows I actually did, because I didn't count my garter rows. So it should be 1, 2, 3, 4. It's only like 4. Okay. Let me do it again. Okay. All right. So after you do your last stitch, which would be like the corner, you're going to go into your increases and decreases, okay? Just like you did before. So we connected, and now we're here. I'm working that last row of the knits and purls. And so there's nothing else to latch on. Otherwise, you'll be pulling the garment over if you do that. So once you do your last connection, which would be like at the corner, just leave that 1 stitch there. And then you're going to go right back to doing the decrease, which you'll knit forward, do a turn, leave the loops on there, and purl back. Knit forward to the 9th peg or whichever, and purl back. Forward, purl back. Forward, purl back. Okay, just like you did before. Okay. So when I said I'm going to do something unorthodox, I'm going to do the bind off as soon as I finish knitting and purling back. I'm going to be honest with you. Binding off, it's not difficult. It's just remembering how to do it correctly. Now, if you loom all the time, you could probably teach me a thing. I don't loom all the time. So, and again, when you're binding off, this would not be the place to bind off. So if you're holding your blanket and so this should be the front. Oh, look, you can see the, hopefully you can see that, the seam. Yay, look at that, see? Very nice. Okay, so you would do your corner, go across the top panel, and come back down the side. You would bind off here. This is where your bind off should be, down here. But I'm breaking that rule in a minute. Just because I don't want to bore you any longer with making this little swatch of a blanket. The funny thing is, like, I could continue to work on this, but I'm not going to do it. Maybe later. That means, yeah, I will be probably taking this out because, well, I'm going to bind off. So there's that. But the funny thing is, supposedly, once you bind off, and if you wanted to extend the blanket anyway, that you are supposed to be able to do that. Okay, so I'm going to try, hopefully I get this right. So to bind off, you want to knit this. And I usually do it in an E-wrap if I know how to. Knit that. So you're going to knit the first peg, knit the second peg. You're going to bring the second loop over to the first, knit that, and then bring that over. Okay. So again, you're going to knit the first, knit the second, and try not to do it too tight. Bring the second over to the first and knit that off, and then bring it over to the next. Now if you're doing 10 stitches like I did, You only have to do this 10 times. If you're doing it 20, you're going to do it 20 times. If you do 130, whatever it is you decided to do, that's what it's going to be. Okay. And you're going to knit that off. I mean, move that over. Move that backwards. Knit it off. Sorry, my thing is moving all over the place. And move it to the next peg. So yeah, I went ahead and E-wrapped the 2 pegs I'm going to work on, just the 2, because you have to do some things like move that stitch over, knit that off, and then move it over. Okay. Now, if you're doing the U-wrap, you just do a U-wrap instead of an E-wrap. Everything is the same. And I will do a U-wrap. Okay. And then you're going to move this over. And then you can kind of cinch up a little bit. Don't do it too tight though, because you don't want your edge to be too tight. All right, so I'm going to do a U-wrap. The first peg, the new first peg, U-wrap the next peg. Bring that over to the first peg and knit that off, and then flip that over. Okay, again, just with the U-wrap. U-wrap, U-wrap. Knit over, knit it off. I have to get in a little tight there, so I pulled on a tiny bit just to kind of loosen it up a little bit. Okay, and then U-wrap, U-wrap. Put this back. Knit that off. Move it over. Right. Wrap. U-wrap. Bring this back. Get that off. We're going to move it over one more time. And then we're just going to do a U-wrap. Stick my finger in there. Cut long enough string so that you can sew it in. Whoops. Okay. So it looks kind of weird because I didn't stop in the right space. And maybe it's good that I'm showing you this. This is why you're supposed to go all the way down. And so you really want to end up down here. Okay. But you can see from bringing my loops over, I created a seam. I usually don't block. I suppose you could block your blankets. I don't think I've ever blocked my blanket that I made like this. You won't really see the seams too much on these corners here, but you can kind of feel it. You can feel the texture there. So, but that's the basics of this. I know I'm going to redo this for you guys, but I wanted to like give you the gist of it all, of how it works. And when I finish doing the increase on my blanket that I'm working on, I can show you also how to do the connections. But just remember that to choose the right yarn with the right hook, you only need to do knits and purls. I mixed up my knits with this project just for kicks and giggles, and there is no mixing of the purls. I only know one way to do a purl, and either way you still get a garter stitch. So just pick whatever and go with it. And then, yeah. And that's that. You just keep going until you either run out of yarn, or your blanket is big enough for the way you want it. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate your gentle criticisms and comments. And like I said, I am going to do this over, hopefully better the next time. All right, y'all. Thank you so much. And I look forward to our next visitation. We're not in prison. I'm sorry. Our next, the next video. Bye, y'all.